I love Magic the Gathering, specifically Commander. It's not the first time I've said that, but I love Commander. It's a social game, but also a trading card game, and just every game is different. I love it so much. I love Commander. One of my favorite things to do with Commander is make themed decks. My very first deck was the Shorokai Kawigama Precon, and I loved the idea of mechs and stuff so much that I made a Power Rangers Megazord themed deck. I got some crappy paper tokens and found some cool art online, and I just loved the idea so much. In fact, Wizards of the Coast have been doing this a lot with such like Secret Lairs and all the Universe Beyond stuff. They've kind of been taking outside IPs and mushing them into Magic the Gathering. And sometimes this is kind of cool and they make some cool products, but a lot of the time I like making my own stuff based on Magic products that already exist. I want to start making some custom commanders with funny themes and print them as proxy decks. So I thought, what is more fitting for a custom commander than potentially the whole identity of my childhood? I'm talking about the original Ben 10. That's right. I wanted to make Ben 10 my commander, and the whole premise be that I have all of his aliens in the deck, or at least some like the original ones, that he can transform into or, summon in this case. So let's just jump into what I designed. Now, I want to preface a couple of things. Number one, I'm not good at making decks, so this deck is very... And also all this art is not mine. I just edited this up in Photoshop. It's, Creative Commons, etc, etc. I'm not making money from that, and if you want the art, I'll probably put them in the Discord and have a little tab there, but I didn't make any of this stuff. I just designed it in Photoshop. Anyway, let's go. Let's start with our commander. I'm using Esika, God of the Tree, and she is a flip card. I don't actually even know what this specific card is called, but on the other side of the card, she's an enchantment, all right? Esika is a legendary creature god with vigilance. Tap 1 mana of any color, and other legendary creatures you control have vigilance and tap to add 1 mana of any color. This is Ben 10, Omnitrix Wielder. Yeah, this is our boy. This is the guy I inspired to be as a child. Now, this card is good, and it's really great, especially for ramping and getting vigilance on all legendary creatures, but that's not really why I'm using Esika. I'm using Esika for their flip side. That's right, I am using Esika for the Prismatic Bridge, or as I'm dubbing it, it's hero time. Legendary enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature or planeswalker card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest onto the bottom of your library in a random order. Can you see the appeal? So, how I'm kind of going about this is that every time we go to our upkeep, we get to bring a creature or planeswalker onto the field and have them wreak some havoc. Now, with the amount of creatures and or planeswalkers I would need, there's too many for me to pick an alien for each and every one of them. So I did a little bit of flavoring, okay? A little bit of flavoring. I decided that in order to represent Ben's original aliens, they would take the form of planeswalkers. That's right. This deck kind of prioritized planeswalkers and loyalty counters and proliferating to raise those counters up. I have a bunch of other little support creatures that make mana and proliferate, but we're mainly focusing on the planeswalkers. I love them so much because it's all the OG Benton aliens, bar like a couple of the extras like the wolf and Upchuck. I did love Upchuck though. Let's get straight into it with our first alien / planeswalker forearms. Now, I went with Domri the City Smasher. The City Smasher? Domri City Smasher. Planeswalker, which is 4 colorless, a red and a green. For +2, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain haste until end of turn. -3, forearms in this case, deals 3 damage to any target, and for -8, put 3 +1 counters on each creature you control. Those creatures gain trample until end of turn. I thought this was a fitting planeswalker for forearms, kind of, rough and tough. Forearms gives me Gruul vibes, and I thought, you know what? This gives me forearms energy. Also, if you didn't realize, the pictures of the aliens I've used, some are high quality, some are low quality, they're the original illustrations from the Ben 10 opening. I love these illustrations. I did a little bit of tinkering just with the outlines and stuff like that, but I love these illustrations, hence why some of them are going to be lower resolution just because I couldn't find HD scans of them. But either way, moving on to our next alien, Heat Blast. For Heat Blast, I went with Chandra, Legacy of Fire. For 4 colorless and a red, you get a Planeswalker that has a passive ability of, at the beginning of your end step, Heat Blast deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of Planeswalkers you control. For +1, add red for each Planeswalker you control, and for 0, remove a loyalty counter from each of any number of permanents you control. Exile that many cards from the top of your library. You may play them this turn. Fire! You know, that kind of gives Heat Blast energy. We're making a mess. We're burning some stuff down. I thought this was very fitting for Heat Blast. Next, we have Diamond Head. For Diamond Head, I went with Teo the Shield Mage. A really kind of basic Planeswalker in my opinion, but I thought this one fits pretty well. Kind of more a defensive one. So, Teo the Shield Mage, or Diamond Head the Shield Mage in my case, is 2 colorless and a white mana. You have the passive ability of, you have hexproof. You can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. And for -2, we can create a 0/3 white wall creature token with Defender, kind of channeling his gemstone creations that he would always make and that he would do. I thought this was fitting. There was another Shield Mage or Teo Planeswalker. I think my vibe was it was a little bit weird and a little bit busted or didn't quite fit Diamond Head's vibe. So I went with this one. I just thought it was fun to make some tokens and some walls, so at least we have defenders. Then we move on to Grey Matter, the little genius himself. For Grey Matter, I chose to use Dovin Baan, who is 2 colorless, a white, and a blue. For +1, until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -3, -0, and its activated abilities can't be activated. For -1, you gain 2 life and draw a card. For -7, you get an emblem with. Your opponents can't untap more than 2 permanents during their untapped steps. I thought this was kind of a big brain Planeswalker. You know, we're being a blue player. It feels like Grey Matter would be a blue player and manipulate the board in some form or fashion. It was either going to be that or looking for a Planeswalker that like makes things smaller, but I guess he does in a sense because he has the -3, even though it's for power, not toughness. But Grey Matter doesn't do a whole lot besides be smart, so yeah, Dovin. Then we're moving on to one of the best aliens, XLR8, who is embodying Teferi the Time Reveler. Reveler. I couldn't find a Planeswalker that kind of emphasized speed besides like haste, and I wanted something that like made it feel like the flow of the game was changing with this fast character. So time manipulation and going really fast is kind of the same thing. So what does Teferi, or Accelerate in this case, give us? Accelerate is a 1 colorless, a white, and a blue. For a passive ability, each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. That one would suck. Gives us a lot more protection from instants and bogus spells. +1, until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. Yes, a huge bugger off. We get to do the opposite of what you can. And for -3, return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand, draw a card. I could really see Accelerate driving around my board, picking up cards and kindly giving them back to my opposition. I thought this one was actually pretty good. Moving on to Stinkfly, the stinky flying bug, I chose Vraska the Unseen. I actually kind of struggled with Stinkfly, finding a Planeswalker that had the vibe that Stinkfly does have. In the end, I wanted to go for like a poisonous, disgusting vibe. So, Vraska has a +1 ability until your next turn. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to Stinkfly, destroy that creature. Big stinky. For -3, destroy target non-land permanent. Very stinky, you know, the things he goes like with his head. Yeah, you get the deal. And then for -7, create 3 1/1 black assassin creature tokens with, whenever this token deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. I thought that one was just funny. And I'm also just realizing that the text goes over the loyalty counter, so you can't even see the word game. Oh well, that one was just funny. I thought it was cool to have kind of like some threatening board presence. Stinkfly is going to cost you 3 colorless, a black, and a green. Next up, we have Ripjaws, who I decided Kiora the Crashing Wave was a perfect fit for. For 2 colorless, a green, and a blue, we can +1 until your next turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to and dealt by target permanent and permanent controls. Kind of taking it like the idea of like, you know, we're drowning them a little bit. -1, draw a card. You may play an additional land this turn. And -5, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, create a 9/9 blue Kraken creature token. I mean, that's perfect. You know, underwater stuff. It's Ripjaws. I'm pretty sure there was like an episode where he had like babies or something. I think. But I just thought that underwater vibe fit Ripjaws perfectly. Next up is Wildvine, who I decided to use Ren and Realm Breaker for 1 colorless and 2 green mana. Lands you control have tap to add 1 mana of any color, helping with that Wooburg things. For +1, up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental creature with vigilance, hexproof, and haste until your next turn. It's still a land. -2, mill 3 cards. You may put a permanent card from among the milled cards into your hand. And for -7, you get an emblem with you may play lands and cast permanent spells from your graveyard. Plants was the real only thing I went off here for Wildvine. And like his head goes like whoop, and he like goes underground. Like underground to a graveyard. Plants. After Wildvine, we go to the menacing Ghost Freak, who I chose to use Vraska. Vraska. Yeah, I actually did that well. Vraska Scheming Gorgon. I thought this was like a very menacing card, which entails Ghost Freak's persona very well. For 4 colorless and 2 black. For +2, creatures you control get +1, +0 until end of turn. For -3, destroy target creature. And for a whopping -10 until end of turn, creatures you control gain Death Touch, and whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent, that player loses the game. I thought that menacing, disgusting undead stuff was perfect for Ghost Freak. Yeah, look, Ghost Freak is a really cool alien in the series who becomes a villain, so I was like, yeah, needs to be villainous as hell. Next up, we have Upgrade. My favorite alien as a kid. Oh my god, I loved Upgrade so much, and they never transformed. They never transformed to Upgrade. Maybe like twice I saw Upgrade. My favorite alien, by far. I decided to use Oko the Trickster. For 4 colorless, a green and a blue. For +1, we can put 2 +1 counters on up to 1 target creature I control. For 0 until end of turn, Upgrade becomes a copy of target creature you control. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to him this turn. Kind of how Upgrade covers a mechanical creature and becomes it. I thought that was perfectly on theme with Upgrade. And for -7 until end of turn, each creature you control has base power and toughness 10/10 and gains trample. I like the idea of like Upgrade kind of covering your whole board in that cool black and green and white color scheme and going crazy. So I thought that was cool. Yeah. Then we have Wildmutt. Now, I really struggled to think of who would be a good fit for Wildmutt. In the end, I went with Ajani the Great-Hearted. For 2 colorless, a green and a white, creatures you control have vigilance. You know how Wildmutt can like sense everything around him. I thought that was very vigilant. For +1, you gain 3 life, and for -2, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and a loyalty counter on each other planeswalker you control. This just fits perfectly with our whole planeswalker vibes, so I like this one quite a lot. Then, for our final alien, we have Cannonbolt, who is a reskin of Nahiri Storm of Stone. Now, I struggled to find one for Cannonbolt that I liked, but I thought this kind of basic premise would be a good idea. So for passive ability, during your turn, creatures you control have first strike, and equip abilities you activate cost 1 less to activate. I'm also just realizing that that 1 is sitting outside the border, which is really annoying. Anyway, for -X, Cannonbolt deals X damage to target tapped creature. I liked the idea of like Cannonbolt's whole thing is he comes in and he whops you, right? So this is a good way to deal with some tapped creatures and use those loyalty counters will hopefully be building up and up and up. And those are all the aliens. In terms of other things that I reskinned, I did reskin 1 artifact, and that artifact is the Chromatic Orrery. The Chromatic Orrery. Yeah, or as I call it, the Omnitrix. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color, tap to add 5 colorless, and then for 5 colorless mana and a tap, draw a card for each color among opponents you control. I thought this artifact was a perfect idea for the Omnitrix. It's getting us that Wooburg mana, it's letting us cast its hero time. I thought this was a perfect fit. So besides our Ben 10 aliens, the rest of our deck is full of creatures, sorceries, instants, artifacts that help us do a couple of things. We're making mana with things such as your Birds of Paradise or your Bloom Tenders. We're also using artifacts such as the Ikumun Gauntlet and the Staff of Compleation, whatever that is, to proliferate. Have a look at the deck in the description below. I just need to be so honest that I am not a deck builder, so this is a little bit of like me practicing to make better decks, but also just making some fun themed decks. So the whole list will be in the description below, and then if you want to get some of the proxies I made, join the Discord. I'll make a little thread for them. Gotta restate, this is not my art. I just whipped these up in Photoshop for a bit of fun. Guys, hope you enjoyed this little fun custom commander video. If you have a suggestion for what kind of custom commander deck I should make next, let me know. I'm always curious to hear. Till next time, I'll see you later.